Today on Sports Central, we're going to be going over another schedule preview, and this one's going to be over Vanderbilt, which is a team that went 3-9 during the 2019 season. Overall, it was a pretty tough year for this team, but nonetheless, in this video, we're going to be going over a few players this team will be losing, who they're going to be returning, and also we're going to be going over their schedule for the first time this offseason. Once again, Vanderbilt went 3-9 in 2019, and as for the games that this team has had since November, they lost to South Carolina November 2nd, 7-24. They got shut out by Florida on the road, 56-0, and also got beat up by Kentucky at home on November 16th, 14-38. They did, however, shut out Eastern Tennessee State, 38-0. However, they did lose to Tennessee a week later, 10-28. Nonetheless, the trend for this team this entire season, they were 2-5 between September and October, and 1-4 between November and the rest of the season. So once again, it was a bit of a tough year for Vanderbilt, and I do understand that they had a lot of losses after that 2018 season, but it's come to a point where, like, for Vanderbilt, they haven't had a good season, like a really good season in quite some time. As for some key points for Vanderbilt going into this offseason, they lose their starting quarterback Riley Neal, lose their top running back Keyshawn Vaughn, which Vaughn was a huge part of this team last year. He was the major player on this offense. He had nearly 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns. And I mean, Riley Neal also was a bit impactful. He didn't have as many yards, though. He had just about 1,600, as well as 9 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So really, I mean, Keyshawn Vaughn was the biggest player on this offense, and the fact that they're going to be losing him is going to be really tough to deal with. They do return their second running back, Keon Brooks, which he had just over 200 yards of offense, so that'll be good to return him, even though he probably doesn't have a whole lot of experience. They also lose their top wide receiver, Kaliha Lipscomb, which he had just over 550 yards as well as 3 touchdowns. So that's going to be a tough loss for the wide receiver position, but nonetheless, they do return all of their other receivers. So the wide receiver position should be able to improve if they can have a couple of receivers step up a bit. Nonetheless, they also lose their top tight end, Jared Pinkney, so they do lose quite a few of their starting positions from many. Like, once again, they lose their top running back, starting quarterback, top wide receiver, top tight end. So yeah, it's going to be tough to deal with at the beginning of the season for sure. But yeah, Jared Pinkney had just over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns as well, so he did have a bit of an impact on this offense. They return their entire offensive line and also their entire defense. That is such a rarity to see. Usually you have at least a couple of players, maybe even one, leaving a defense, no matter whether they're going to the NFL draft or just graduating in general. But nonetheless, this entire Vanderbilt defense is returning going into the 2020 season. So that, honestly, if you were a good team, that would be a really scary thing, because I mean, when you return an entire defense, when you're able to play with the same defense for 2 years in a row, it can be huge. I mean, we've seen that in the past many times. Nonetheless, this offense does have a few tough hits, though, no doubt about it once again. But the defense has a ton of room to improve, too. I mean, when you return an entire defense, once again, anything can happen. But the chances of making a bowl game for Vanderbilt, it's all going to lay on whether the quarterback position will do good or not, and whether Keon Brooks will be able to step up to the plate and fill the shoes of Keyshawn Vaughn. And if that happens, I think Vanderbilt could very well be on their way to a bowl game. But they also have quite a tough schedule, as you can see here. Of course, this is what you can kind of expect from Vanderbilt. They start off the season on September 5th against Mercer, and then they travel to Missouri the next week for September 12th, and on the 19th, they're also on the road at Kansas State. So they actually do quite a tough first month. Of course, when you have to travel to Missouri and then to Kansas State, which I don't think Kansas State will be as good this season, but nonetheless, it's 2 Power 5 conference teams they got to worry about. Then they also have Colorado State at home. Should be a possible win there, but I'm not going to mark it as green right now. Then you got a really tough game against Georgia on October 3rd. I think that's going to be a loss. But nonetheless, looking ahead, you got Ole Miss then on October 10th, Kentucky on the 17th, then a bye week, and then South Carolina at home the next week. And then as you head into November, you play Florida at home, Texas A&M on the road, and then Louisiana Tech at home on November 21st. I'm going to give them a win for that one. And then Tennessee on November 28th to finish off the season once again. So I'm kind of expecting, I think they're going to go anywhere between 4-8 and 6-6. I think they have just as good of a chance of going 4-8 as they do 6-6. This Vanderbilt team, I think, with the defense, if their defense can improve, of course they very well should, because of how many players that they're returning. But nonetheless, who knows what's going to happen here. Once again, it is still very early on in the offseason. We are just in early February right now. But nonetheless, once again, record estimation is going to be anywhere between 4-8 and 6-6. I do think Vanderbilt improves on last season, and it's kind of a risky bet right now, especially when you lose a few really key players on the offensive side, like Vaughn and Riley, Neal, Lipscomb, all of those guys. Those are tough losses. But once again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Vanderbilt. Let me know what you think of this team. Do you think that they'll be able to make it to a bowl game? Let me know in the comments below. I'd like to hear what you guys think of that. But yeah, thank you guys all for watching. And once again, stay tuned for more from All Sports Central, and I will see you all later.